Hello. I've managed to hit max level yesterday and it was an amazing adventure for me. I really enjoyed it. It took me quite some time to get there. The reason for that is that I've been doing all the quests in all the zones, and the quests in the last two zones, Stillmoor and Shimmer Sand, those quests were absolutely brutal. The issue was that Warrior doesn't have high single target DPS, and in the spec I'm using, the mobs were respawning faster than I could kill them, and it was an amazing experience. And now to the main part of this video. I'm gonna try to teach you how to play Warchanter and give you an insight on what the spec cannot do, and maybe you will get a better understanding of the spec and maybe one day master it yourself. Okay, so let me start off by saying that there are many possible ways of making Warchanter work, because the thing is that there are many possible ways how you can spend your soul points, because it hybridizes really well with Liberator. You can even add a bit of tank in there, like Paladin, VK, White Knight if you want, for sustain in PvP. So this is the spec I'm using. I'm using 38, 28. The reason for 28 in Liberator is Quick Remedy. It basically changes how you can play the spec. It gives you so much, it makes it much safer to play. And like you can get I'm Your Shield buff with 40 Warchanter, but that means you won't be able to get Quick Remedy from Liberator. It would mean that you have a like insanely powerful cooldown for the tank. The real issue with I'm Your Shield comes that you take 100% of the damage redirected, and if you are doing like a really big pull or a hard boss that's basically one-shotting the tank, if you use that ability you're gonna die instantly, because you don't have as much HP as the tank does. So there's situation where it's useful, situation where it's not useful, but if we wanna keep it simple, this is gonna be the spec you're using. It provides the most of everything, the most of mitigation, most of single target healing. If you wanna do AoE healing like later on, if there are raids at all, it's gonna be spec with Liberator. It's gonna be either 44 Liberator or 48 Liberator or even 51. It really depends on the situation. Like all the other healers, they are very situational. It depends what you wanna accomplish with the spec. Like you can make a bit different build to suit whatever you like in a healer. It doesn't really matter. It's okay, you can do whatever you want. Like this is one of the specs that I came up with and I really enjoy it. So after we have the spec, let's take a look which abilities I've decided to get, like the important ones in the spec. One thing that I wanna say out first is that Liberation Movement is basically the only AoE heal you have in this spec, because it spreads your single target healing over time effect to 4 members total. You can use it on the tank and it spreads through to 3 other people. It's extremely powerful and one of the few sources of AoE healing in this spec. If you want more AoE healing, then you need to go more points into Liberator, but that's like, maybe I'll make a video for that build as well some other time. Now let's take the buffs we get in this spec. In this spec I'm using Best Laid Plans, Way of the River from Paragon, Aegis of Advocacy from Liberator, and Adrenaline Overdrive from Liberator as well. Those 4 buffs, 3 of them are used and go to you, which are Aegis of Advocacy, Way of the River, and Best Laid Plans. Meanwhile, Adrenaline Overdrive goes on the tank. It increases max HP by 3%. This is not seen on any metric, but it really helps, trust me, especially for raiding. Let's take a look at another buff we could get. It's Deep Breaths. Like there's a lot of discussion about that buff. I'm gonna leave it here for now. Like I'm gonna say I'm not using it. My reason for that is that it changes rotation completely. It makes spec unplayable in some situations. I've tried healing raid bosses with that buff. It makes the spec go from like 6 or 7 in difficulty to the absolute 10 out of 10 difficulty. It becomes basically the hardest spec in this game. If you are not God of Rift, I don't recommend using that buff. So that's it for that. Now let's take a look at the buffs I have, I mean abilities I have on my bar. These are the buttons. This pack has a lot of buttons, and if you want to optimize your gameplay to the absolute maximum, you'll need a lot of buttons. I don't know how many, but I guess it's around 15 or something. So let's take a look at which buttons I'm using. First button is the cooldown on the tank, phalanx, 30% less damage taken, extremely powerful. Next is liberation treatment. This can be spread to 4 people in your group total, very useful for AoE healing. Then I have catch your breath, it regenerates, power back, very useful. I'm your shield, that's if you're using 40 Warchanter, which I'm not using in this video at the moment. Then you have separate button for withstand united, best ability in this spec. Next thing I'm using are 3 macros. This pack has 4 macros total, 3 are for healing, 1 is for cleansing. We'll go through those macros a bit later. For now let's take a look at the other buttons. Next is the cooldown, Bond of Brotherhood. What this thing does is whenever you use it, you'll see you get a circle around you, and to all people you'll do increased healing by 15%, and if the guy stands inside your circle, he's gonna get double that proc, which means 30% increased healing. Then when you use this, you wanna be standing on the tank, which is your primary source of heals, and it also helps standing close to the tank because of the aggro. If the mobs, because of your big heals, aggro you, the tank will be having easier time picking those up. Next ability I have on my bar is stand and fight. This ability is a combat rest, very useful for all situations. I have 2 hybrid DPS abilities, but I'm not really using those. Those are like for special situations where, I don't know, there will be like execute phase on the boss. I don't even know if we are gonna be getting to that in any raid boss anytime. So there is another ability I have on my bar, tactical rest. This is your main ability that you'll need to learn how to manage properly. What it does, it basically, after I'm spamming my heals with my macro, we'll get to the macros later, when I'm out of my resources, out of my attack points and out of my energy, this is the 2 resources you'll have to track, I can use tactical rest ability, and it will give me all my energy back and all my attack points back. It's really powerful, and not only that, it also causes your 2 next finisher, which are withstand united, which is gonna be most probably withstand united, yes, to crit. It causes it to crit, which you can imagine is extremely powerful. Basically when you use it, the tank is not gonna be getting any healing for 3 seconds, which means that in that time you need to make sure the tank is not gonna die. Like, you can cast it and interrupt it after 1 second and proceed with healing if tank is taking too much damage, or you could let it go through for the full duration of the channel, which is 3 seconds, and start healing after that. It's very situational, and it depends what you're trying to accomplish at that exact moment. Next button I have is AoE cleanse. It's basically a macro. And the last button is deliverance. I've macroed it with single target healing builder, but it's not used if you are not in a raid group. Other abilities just provide more healing. I'm not using it when I'm doing dungeons at all. This pack is extremely powerful because it has arguably one of the best, if not the best, single target healing you can get in Rift Prime at the moment. It's around 6k at most if like played really well and optimally, and if you are lucky with crits, which is absolutely insane. It provides also damage reduction and it decreases tank's HP. It's just really powerful spec overall. Now let's have a look at the macros. The macros I'm using are quite simple and straightforward. Basically the only 3 macros that you need for this pack are single target healing finisher, single target healing builder macro, single target healing macro, builder macro. We can check which abilities are in that macro. It's don't give up, that's a shield, we'll get through this. This is 3% damage reduction. I'm with you is your single target healing finisher that consumes energy, and catch your breath is a thing that gives you energy back. So basically this is the safe thing to use when the tank isn't taking that much damage and you want to generate your attack points. as I said, in this spec it's all about you having a good idea of both your resources, which are attack points and energy, and play according to that. There is no optimal rotation, so you'll need to adapt to every single situation and play it smartly. So this is the builder macro. You just use that when there is basically little or none damage on the tank to generate attack points. And then there's the finisher macro. This is the spam ability. In this spec, with this macro, basically you can do a lot with only using this one button, and when you use it, basically in the macro there's a combination of builder and finisher, and you'll be able of doing insane heals with just one button. But unfortunately one button isn't enough for this spec. You'll need other abilities and manage your resources properly. The last thing is the cleanse macro. All the macros I'll be putting in the description of the video. Is the cleanse macro. It's just to use it whenever you need to cleanse somebody in the group, the tank or whoever has a debuff that needs cleansing, and you just spam that button to get it done, so you don't have to target each guy individually. The main problem with this spec is that it doesn't have AoE cleanse. It's a 52 talent, which means you'll get it at level 52, which is not possible in Rift Prime at the moment. Only other way of getting AoE cleanse would be if you were to spend a lot more points into Liberator, but this would reduce the healing done by Warchanter abilities, so it's not really that great. Another thing I want to point out is the UI setup. When you are healing, you want to have a good idea what's happening. This is my setup at the moment. With this, how I like my setup. My UI setup is that I have raid frames or group frames a bit left of my screen, so I can see exactly what's going on and when people are taking damage, so I can spot heal instantly. And this is what you're gonna be doing a lot in dungeons at the moment. It's not only about tank healing, it's spot healing people that are standing in shit, in fire, as we all know. That's what people like to do. And then there's my rule alerts. I have the tactical rest one, liberation treatment, quick remedy, and the two big cooldowns, which are bond of brotherhood and phalanx. I want to track those at all times so I know what's going on. And basically when you are healing, it's all about managing your resources properly, your cooldowns, your energy, your attack points. And even though the spec can be played somewhat efficiently with only one button, to master it takes a lot of time, patience, dedication, because there are so many things going on, and if you make a mistake in this spec, it's gonna cost you a lot. You will see there are gonna be situations where you will be running out of resources, you will have no cooldowns ready, the tank is gonna be wrecked, and there isn't gonna be really much you're gonna be able to do, which means you need to know in advance what to use, when to use it, and be prepared for every situation. I forgot to add that the reason I went 28 Liberator and not a different build is that, like, you have two resources, attack points and energy, and there's gonna be situation where you will need to do a lot of healing. You will have energy, but you will not have attack points, and the only real way in my build to recover from that is if I use quick remedy, which is an ability from Liberator that instantly gives me 3 attack points. It basically prolongs your insane sustained healing by like 5 seconds, and it's just enough time for tactical rest to come back off cooldown, so you can regen your energy and attack points back to full. Like, how the spec works, this spec, it's the safest way you can be playing it, and it provides by far the most single target healing you can get. Like, there are ways of getting more single target healing output with going more into Warchanter. I know it is possible, but the real issue is that the abilities that you are getting from the Warchanter don't outweigh the randomness of the spec, because you have to know that there is a lot of energy issues. The reason for that is how the abilities work. Basically, I'm with you costs 25 energy, which is a lot, but if you manage to crit with you stand united, it means that the I'm with you ability, which is builder, will cost no energy. So this means Warchanter is one of the few specs in the game, there really aren't many, that scales with crit. Having crit in this spec is useful because it actually makes your gameplay safer. You'll be less energy starved, you'll be able to play it safer, you'll have more resources available to you, and it's just good all around. For stats, I prefer stacking attack power, it's just the safest thing you can do. You can stack crit power. For mostly crit power will mean you'll be overhealing in the raids a lot, which is not what you wanna do. You wanna be playing it safe as a healer, as a single target healer at least. For AoE heals you can like do whatever you want, it doesn't really matter that much, because it's more about overall HPS you can do on the group, but for single target healer it's playing it safe. That's why I'm stacking attack power instead of crit power or physical crit. And there is a lot of interaction with crit, so having crit in this pack is not actually that terrible, but still having attack power just feels a bit safer for me. And now it's time to see this pack in action. Don't forget to put Adrenaline Overdrive on the tank, it increases max HP by 3%, and buff yourself with the 3 buffs you have in this pack. When it comes to execution in this pack, it's very important that you keep track of your resources and know when the tank is gonna be taking damage, because you have a cooldown that reduces damage taken by 30%, and if you use it when the tank is already at 10%, well, it's not gonna do much and the tank will most probably die if he doesn't have a cooldown. So in this pack, if you wanna play it optimally, you need to know in advance when the damage on the tank is gonna happen and when to use your cooldowns and when to save them. At the moment we are just clearing trash, and I'm keeping an eye on my resource, my energy, my attack points, and I'm making sure the tank is close to 80% or over it for most of the time. And if I ever see him dropping lower, I'm gonna use Phalanx first and Bond of Brotherhood later to get him back to max HP. Like any other healer in this game, Spec is situational, there is no optimal rotation, you need to adapt to the situation and know when to use, what to use accordingly to the damage the tank is taking. You saw the tank took quite some damage. I popped a cooldown on him, I basically used both my cooldowns, and now I'm spamming the finisher macro again. And if I would see him take even more damage than he's taking now, I would use my second ability, which I'm tracking in my screen, which will give me 3 points instantly, which means I'll be able to spam heals for days. It just happened now. I used it, I used AoE heal on the group, and now I'm out of cooldowns, and I know because I managed my resource properly, I can use tactical rest, regen attack points, force crits on my finisher, the tank is gonna be fine. I just used 30% increased healing on the tank, and there's absolutely no issue keeping the tank alive. I had to regen my energy, I used tactical rest, tank drop a bit lower, and after tactical rest finishes casting, channeling I mean, I used my finisher and the tank's HP goes back to 100% instantly. In this pack it's all about getting used to how your resources work, and it's very important that you have a track of which abilities are ready, which abilities are not ready, and which abilities should be used at a certain time. One of the main issues with this pack is that full Warchanter healer is not capable of getting AoE clans, which means in some groups, some situations you'll need to use AoE clans, but you don't have one, which means that you'll have to ask your group, your party members to get a spec. Like this group for example, I asked a guy to go either AoE healer or bard with AoE clans because he needs to do AoE clans. I cannot do it. I can provide a lot of healing, I can do single target cleansing, but I cannot do AoE cleansing, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about that in this spec. I would go full Liberator for this fight, but I don't have the spec yet, so I had to ask a guy to help me. But even though I cannot do the mechanic properly, I can still provide a lot of sustained healing on me, on the tank, on everybody that needs healing, and it's absolutely no issue for us to kill this boss. We're doing the Oak boss now, the 3-ant. This is one of the hardest bosses in all of the experts to heal. The damage on the tank is insane. The more bees there are, the more damage he's gonna take. Since he's a warrior tank, he might have an issue with the aggro, which means that he's gonna lose aggro. Either me or the DPSers are gonna be tanking the beast, and it's gonna be extremely hard for me to heal this properly. I'm gonna try my best to provide as much as I can to this group. You see that he's dropping low. It's exactly when I'm casting tactical rest. If the damage was simply too high, I could do a thing where I cancel tactical rest at 1 attack point at 1 second of the cast, but I don't think that this is gonna be needed for this fight, because we've killed one hide and there's gonna be not that many adds alive at the same time, which means that the damage is not gonna be that insane. Since we have a lot of AoE DPS, they are capable of killing beasts fast enough, and I do not have to worry all that much about the tank taking insane amounts of damage. We can see overhealing done in this current pool. I could do around 3.5k healing. That's shields not included, not including damage prevented, damage reduction, so I'm doing quite good. And if I'm not healing the tank, I'm gonna do less healing, so I'm like this boss is hard. I'm gonna put that out here. If you are using the setup we are using at the moment, like, it's not the hardest, it could be much worse, but still using one healer on this fight is quite nuts, especially if the tank is a warrior, because warriors tend to have aggro issues, especially on this fight, because by the time adds come, the little bees come to the tank, I'm gonna have them on me because of my healing aggro, so there's absolutely nothing the tank can do about that. Only thing we can do is hope for the best. It was quite rough. There were situations where both me and the tank dropped to like 20% HP, but because this pack is such insane spot healing, I managed to get us back up to 100% really fast.